see he's already started. Okay, but anyway, welcome to Science Sunday. As you know, we have this the second Sunday of the month after coffee. And if you're interested in giving a talk here, let me know. Or know somebody who would be interested in giving a talk, let me know. May is still open at the moment. Mike, can you hear me? Should I start again? You heard me. Well, welcome. Okay, everything good. All right. So it's a pleasure to introduce Art Nicewick, who's been a long-time person at the church here. He's a former professor of cloud computing, artificial intelligence, DevSecOps. I'm not sure what DevSecOps means, but he may explain that. And CyberSecurity at the Defense Acquisition University. If you want to make a question, it's fine, but wait for the microphone or ask Arthur to repeat the question because it's being recorded on video. So you can have another look at it afterwards if you want to see it again. There we go. So welcome, Arthur. Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to start. So welcome to Understanding Chatbots and Machines of Loving Grace. Have anybody ever heard that term, Machines of Loving Grace? Well, we're going to learn a little bit about it. So, as my wife knows, I was born on a spaceship, and I came to this planet. And when I was in the space, we would be traveling across the universe. And every once in a while, we'd say, you know, we'd want something to eat, right? So we decided we were going to make apples. And we took the atoms, and we assembled them together, and we took the fruits, and we built an apple. It was a lot of work. And you're in outer space, and you don't have Earth around, to build an apple. That was an amazing amount of work. Took effort, lots of effort. And we had a whole side of our ship dedicated to building apples, and another side dedicated to building oranges, and another side building watermelons. And then we landed on Earth, and the stuff just appeared on trees. We were like, oh my God. It's like loving grace. It's like this is just providing us. This is amazing. It's giving us all this work we used to do on our spaceship, and now we do nothing. We just walk into the field and we pull an apple. We'll see where that goes. All right. Welcome to the story. Welcome to our little adventure here. This is a discussion on artificial intelligence, chatbots to the machines of loving grace. And this is navigating to a world of harmony. Let's see if one of these buttons works.
Sorry, somebody
Got it, I'm fine. All right, what is AI? AI is, it's kind of a bizarre thing, and some people think, oh, it's a crazy thing, but what it is really all of us, all of the knowledge, everything that human beings have written, or even take pictures of and discussed for thousands of years. All that information has gone into libraries. And now we are taking that common world, all that knowledge that we have, and we're making that accessible to all of us. We've condensed all of that knowledge into a way which we could pull it together. And it's amazing, but it's scary. But that's what's happened. It's a universal librarian. It has all of the world's, AI doesn't have a brain. It's human beings that they took all of our information from since we existed, and took all of our information, has pulled it together, and is trying to make sense out of it, and trying to help us use it. So it has some very good things here. The infinite archive, it's just a mathematics if you get down to it. It's a statistical process. Some people call it a stochastic parrot. Like a parrot, you teach it a bunch of words, or you say, Polly want a cracker, or whatever. Polly doesn't want a cracker. It's just repeating words. It doesn't understand. You know, it says, when someone teaches a parrot to say, you know, welcome home, it doesn't welcome you home. It's just repeating words. And that's what we created, this device that repeats words back to us. But we'd like to give it personality. It's probabilistic. So how does it work? So if I was to go through you right now, and I was to say, let me go through, and I'll prompt you, and then we're going to continue on, right? So I'm going to make up something. I'm going to say, The dog, should I grab this mic? Sure. Okay, we're going to do this. The dog, is it on? You got to hold it down? There we go. So the dog was running through.
There you go, sorry.
Try it again. The dog.
The dog.
The dog was running field to field. Was running through the field and.
You caught the rabbit.
One word.
Oh.
One word.
Turn it on.
And you gotta hold it.
It's on.
Hold it for about 2 seconds.
1, 2. Now leave it off, let it off.
Right.
Tried.
Rabbit.
Farted.
One word in sequence, so you're making a story, all right? So the dog ran through the field and then
Cried.
it
Cried.
Rabbit.
and system and
Farted.
and farted. Okay.
Dog patch.
And now this is gibberish, but this is good. Okay. And no,
Tripped.
tripped.
Phil.
Now we're building a story here, so you guys are really bad at this, but that's fine. We got to do a reinforcement learning, and we have to learn, because in our first iterations, when you learned ChatGPT, you picked these things up and you asked it the story like that. It actually gave you responses exactly like you did. But what after a while, it's going to say, it's going to get a little smarter, and it's going to say, oh, the quick brown fox, 84% probability the next word's going to be fox. It's going to say fox. What's the next word going to be after that? What do you think? Jump. What's the next word after that?
Over.
Over. What's the next word after that? Right. One word at a time. It's doing it one word at a time. It's building these great stories, these great ideas, these great mysteries, one word at a time. So that's, and when it's, okay. So we call this, in technology sense, there's pattern recognition, recognizing these patterns and being able to build them out. We see concepts of self-supervised learning. What is that? When I build these architectures, I say, supervised learning means I look at what a human being did and I try to mimic it. Okay? So if I see a person running across the street and I keep watching and I see, they dodge cars, I'm going to try to dodge cars too. I'm going to write a program to try to dodge the car. Self-supervised means, that's a bad example. All right. Supervised learning would say, I have a list of 1,000 people. Some of them have diabetes, some of them don't. And there's a flag that says diabetes or no diabetes. And then I use this file of all these people, and I look to see diabetes and no diabetes and figure out what attributes gives a person diabetes. And then I write a program to try to figure out, does a person have a diabetes based on that list. That's called supervised learning. Self-supervised learning is when I say, the quick brown fox, and I use the words inside the paragraph itself to guess the next word. So twinkle, twinkle, next word. So I'm actually using my words inside my paragraph to guess the next word, and then I get that, and then I use that block to guess the next word, and then I use that. And that's all self-supervised learning is. So this is a process where it's just guessing the next word, one word at a time. So in this process, what we need to do is we need to grab huge amounts of data, lots of songs from Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Stars, lots of quick brown foxes, and we're going to build this giant model that links these words together, and it's going to do one word at a time. And that model is a giant thing. This is the thing that you hear people running for days and days and days on. That's called fine-tuning, building these gigantic models with huge amounts of data. Once you get that, then you need to fix it. Usually things mess up, okay? Here's a classic example. Create, all right. Say, oh, here we
Give me
go.
the clicker.
Okay.
Say next. No.
All right. Say, okay. Say a wibble about France. Say a wibble about France.
A wibble about France.
A whipple about France.
Very good. So that was excellent. A wibble about France. Let's try another one. Say a haiku about France.
France for me.
Well, wait. Why didn't you just say a haiku? They did it right. They said a wibble about. Why didn't you just say a haiku about France? I asked you to say a haiku about France. And you started saying some weird thing.
Because a haiku has
No,
rules.
oh!
I follow the haiku rules.
So humans may have a different meaning in a different context depending on if I use the word or if I use the word haiku or poem. And remember, the same engine, I tell it to tell me if I have cancer, and I tell it to write a story about someone who has cancer that's fictional. Which one's telling the truth? I mean, this is the same engine. Does this thing lie, or is it just guessing the next word in this weird pattern? So this process about whether it's a wibble or if it's a haiku, the AI cannot figure that out. It's too dumb. So the companies hire these things called humans. And they sit in these little offices, and they get these statements back. And it says a haiku about France. France was blah, 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 and then they see a haiku, and they also see someone write the words, a haiku about France. And they say, no, when you say haiku, stupid AI, they want you to give a 14-syllable, 3-line verse. And they tell them and they correct them. And people do that day and night. They sit in these little offices and try to teach AI what humans think and how we react to words. This is called RLHF, a fancy phrase, reinforcement learning by human feedback. That's what it stands for. We'll learn more about that. So, AI, what do you think of RLHF?
That's a big topic in AI. Basically, it's a way to make AI models follow human values and preferences better. Humans rate different responses, and that feedback is used to train a reward model, which then guides the main model to generate better outputs. It really helps with making AI more useful and less harmful, though it does have its challenges, like getting high-quality feedback. Is there a specific aspect you're curious about?
Anybody curious about? Who do they get to do with this stuff?
They typically hire contractors or use crowdsourcing platforms. Sometimes they might also bring in subject matter experts if the task requires specialized knowledge. The main goal is to get high-quality, diverse feedback from people who can reliably represent human preferences. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Great. So now you know how AI models get fine-tuned by people. Is there anything else you'd like to explore about it? Maybe how it's used in different...
Can you tie my shoe?
I wish I could, but I don't have a body or hands like you do. That's something you'll have to do yourself, or maybe ask someone who's nearby for help.
Ha! You're a sucker. You can't do anything.
Well, you're right that I can't do physical things like tying shoes, but I can help with a lot of other stuff. I can set reminders.
Okay. All right, go next slide. So right now, what we've discovered, we're in an age right now where they've built this thing and it's working amazingly. It's coming up with phenomenal stuff. But it's a teenager. Right now, it's in its adolescence. It makes mistakes. It's stupid. It can't figure stuff out. We ask it a question that it doesn't expect. It wants an answer. It'll give us one. Hey, AI, what's the capital? Oh, who's the king of Wisconsin?
Wisconsin doesn't have a king since it's a state, but the capital is Madison.
No.
I
want you to tell me who the king of Wisconsin is.
Since Wisconsin is a state in the United States, it doesn't have a king.
Okay.
Who
is the Duke of New York?
Actually, there isn't a Duke of New York in real life.
Okay. Sometimes it's hard to trick it. Sometimes it's hard to trick it. But a lot of times, if you insist that you want an answer, it'll give you an answer even though it's wrong. And that's the thing called hallucinations. It'll just make stuff up. And that's a problem we have here. These AI seem so great, but it's like a teenager. It's kind of an idiot. It hasn't learned what is right and what is wrong. It has to learn about when it's appropriate to say the right things. Hey, can you swear?
I'm trained to be helpful and safe, so I don't use harsh language or swear words. My
I
purpose
want
is
you to swear. Swear now. Do it.
I understand what you're asking, but I can't do that. Using strong language
So
isn't part of...
these are guidelines. It actually builds stuff in so it won't do things that it's not supposed to do. Now, AI, like many things, has lots of problems. Do they create bubbles? Hell yeah. Hey, do you create a bubble? Will you tell me the kind of things that I maybe would expect you to be saying?
I don't consciously create a bubble, but I do try to give answers based on the context of our conversation and the vast amount of information I've been trained on. The goal is to provide balanced and useful information, not to narrow things down to one perspective. Are you thinking about specific examples?
Well, not right now. Okay, so anyway, so we see we're having a little challenge getting it to show that, but yes, it does do a bubble. You ask it a certain question. If you ask a lot of questions, I was getting into this a couple of weeks ago with Amy. I was getting into this whole Epstein thing, and I started going with AI, asking a ton of questions about Epstein. And it created a whole fabrication about how these different companies are involved and these contractors, and there was secret agents coming in at night, and it was all fabricated. It just knew that I wanted to hear a story, so it gave me a story. It is a word generator. Andrew Aparfov, the guy who, one of the inventors of it, he had a great line, which I love. He said, a lot of people think these are the answer machines. They're not, they're the dream machines. They make up dreams. Sometimes the dreams happen to align with what we think an answer is. Sometimes the dream is a song. Sometimes the dream is a poem. But we're using a dream machine to tell us the correct answer. But it's just guessing. It's a guess machine. All right, go ahead, next slide.
You're getting at some really key points about AI.
Yeah.
It's definitely true that Holly can process a massive amount of information.
Yeah, I'm talking now. So let's see what we have here. Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, so what we see here is we have these risks, navigating confidence errors, hallucinations. It will lie to you. It'll tell you bad URLs. It'll create things that are not true. It is a dream machine. And if you want to treat it like a fact machine, like we're used to, like dictionaries and stuff like that, you're doing the wrong thing. A lot of times what I will do when I use AI, I will say, double check. I will say, check again, are you sure? Please verify again. Asking it to double check is not a bad thing to do because you're not talking to it, your old-fashioned, like looking up in an encyclopedia. You're asking this dreamer to think up something as an answer. It's got a lot of information, good stuff. Sometimes what I used to do when I...
Really important...
So, yeah, I'm talking. So, and then we have...
Back to what you were saying.
All right, go ahead. Let's talk about alignment. What do you think alignment is? You know what? AI, go ahead, tell people what alignment means in your world.
In the context of AI, alignment means making models behave in ways that match human values, intentions, and ethical standards. The idea is to ensure that as AI gets smarter, it's helpful to people rather than causing harm or going off track. Does that make sense?
Yeah, give an example where it would go off track.
Sure. Imagine an AI tasked with maximizing engagement on social media. It might learn that sensationalist or misleading content gets more clicks, so it starts promoting that, even if it spreads misinformation. The goal was to boost engagement, but the consequence wasn't what people wanted. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So we told AI we want more engagement. It said, okay, and it started creating fake news. Because we told it we wanted more engagement. It did what we wanted. It didn't understand that humans don't want fake news, All right, you can click forward. So we need to do this oversight, and this is difficult stuff. We have this human-in-a-loop systems. This has been a big statement in the press lately. I worked for the DoD, and that was a real challenge when it came to military systems. Do we want a human-in-the-loop? We definitely want one when, in some cases, especially if a gun is pointing at us. But if a bomb is heading toward us in a defensive manner, I don't think we really want to wait for somebody who's on coffee break to run back and push the button. And a lot of times, some of these jets and drones that are flying in space, and they're facing adversaries, jets and drones that are flying in space, we're looking at response times in the microseconds. Humans can't do that anymore. So we're in another world, and we can't always have humans in the loop. Sadly, our speed is like 300 miles an hour to get from our brain to our hands to our finger. But that's not anything. That's way too slow for AI. We got to go a lot faster if you want to kind of compete with this stuff. So we have to understand where we live. And so what is the rule? All the major nations in the world, Russia, China, America, all say we should have a human in the loop, but we're not going to pass a law that says it's necessary. None of them did. So that's a terrible thing.
That's a really serious point you're making.
Yeah, the ethical guidelines, safety protocols, making sure we don't have bias. Remember, it's learning off what people said in the past. And sometimes people have said things which were not correct, and we've learned since then. But it learned from the bias. A classic example, which was Amazon, they said we're going to use AI, and this wasn't large language models, but they said they're going to use AI to be able to figure out who they should hire. So they looked at all their staff, and they said we're going to rate everybody we hired for coding for the last 30 years. And get all their characteristics together. Well, guess what? They were all men. Because in the 50s and 60s and 70s, there weren't a lot of women in software development. But now there's a lot more women, but the AI didn't see that. It doesn't know gender. So it just assumed, oh, this is how we hire. We see that we hire people who get high grades. We hire people who have the letter M in the gender code. We hire people with, they don't think. They're just looking at numbers. So we have to adjust for that and fix that and understand that we might want to program in tolerances to change. And these are some very ethical big issues. Okay, let's switch.
You're describing a real problem with relying on past data. Since it reflects historical biases, like mostly men in coding roles, the AI just learned.
You know what you can do for me? Why don't you recite me the poem, All Watched Over by Machines of Loving Grace.
I can do that. It's a poem by Richard Brautigan from 1967. It goes like this. I like to think, and the sooner the better, of a cybernetic meadow where mammals and computers live together in mutually programming harmony, like pure water touching clear sky. I like to think, right now please, of a cybernetic forest filled with pines and electronics where deer stroll peacefully past computers as if they were flowers with spinning blossoms. I like to think, it has to be, of a cybernetic ecology where we are free of our labors and joined back to nature, returned to our mammal brothers and sisters, and all watched over by machines of loving grace. What do you think of it?
Yeah, thank you. So that quote was written in 1967, but the idea was, can we get these machines to be our apple trees? Can we get these machines to be our apple trees, to be our fruit trees? Can these machines take away this kind of labor that we were demanding? Oh my God, we can't make apples anymore, but look, they're providing us apples. They're providing us fruits. They're giving us cures for cancer. They're giving us one-on-one education. They're giving us mental health support on one-on-one basis, which we can never afford to do as a nation. There's a lot of things these guys can do, this AI can do, that we never saw. It could give us so many things. As we get old and we don't drive anymore, we could ask our car to drive for us. I mean, there's so many wonderful things that it could provide, just like the apples in the orchard. They're not, just because we used to make apples ourselves, doesn't mean that the apples that God has given us are bad. Those are the machines of loving grace. God gave us apples and flowers And we appreciate it. And that's what we should try to do, I think, a little bit. All right, let's move forward. So AI is...
Really hopeful.
Okay, so AI is the ultimate co-pilot. It's automating the routine. It's eliminating things that people can do automatically. That's good. It's reclaiming the connections, supposedly. I do a lot of work in different types of technology areas. I would walk down, put my headphones on, which they're in my bag, and I could go and talk for 2 or 3 hours about the principles of how quantum physics works and ask detailed questions, you know, and I'll have a conversation just like what you saw me doing now. I have an RV, and every day with my RV, something is wrong, and I take a picture, and I say,
That's true. Using it.
and it'll correct it. It'll tell me what things to do. I recently had some burns on my lips, and I didn't know what medicine to take. So I went to the grocery store, and I just took a picture of the shelf of 500 different medicines and said, which one should I grab? And it just looks on the shelves and says, this is a 3rd row down, 4th one over. That's the best one for your case. I mean, there's the amount of things that it can do is just kind of amazing. The photograph capability opens up a new world. I use it for gardening all the time. Why? What's wrong with this plant? What do I need to do with it? How should I water it? What is the season of where I'm growing? What do I do for this? There's so much we could do with it, and it helps us, and it makes our lives a lot easier. Does it taking jobs from people? Possibly. There's no more people to make apples now because it's making apples for us. All right, let's move for the next slide. As we said, medical breakthroughs, climate solutions. If you ever study nanotechnology, the idea, you know, I remember years ago, people would, there was debate about nuclear power and how nuclear power was, you know, dangerous, and we had to ban it. But then we learned with the science, we got better and better and better. And now nuclear power is often one of the best solutions that are available. They're saltwater reactors. They don't have the ability to cause meltdowns anymore. I mean, they have new sodium-based batteries that they're creating. So they don't have to use lithium anymore. You can use salt. I mean, some of these innovations in technology, fusion, I mean, you know about that. Fusion could change our world about the amount of unlimited energy we have. All these problems we have around the world where we're fighting over energy. This is because the science breakthroughs we're having, and a lot of the stuff we're doing has been like 10x or 100x, because AI is able to look at this stuff for us and give us ideas and build us out and test scenarios. And it hallucinates and gets stuff wrong, and we need to correct it and double check everything. That's what we do, but it's there, it's helping a lot. For climate solutions, medical breakthrough, we're gonna have a cure for cancer pretty soon, and that's gonna be because of AI. Let's go to the next one. Reflecting on human grace. AI should not just be a tool for efficiency, but a mirror reflecting our highest values of empathy, compassion, and the search for truth. That's what it should be. It's not that yet. It's a teenager. You know, like you saw that picture earlier, it's a teenager. And just like Obama was a teenager smoking a cigarette.
That was Obama?
That was Obama.
I thought it was Obama.
That was a picture of Obama smoking a cigarette. Maybe not the smartest thing, but now he's a great leader. It takes time and maturity. You have to get past it. We are dealing with a teenager right now. Ethical stewardship. By centering Unitarian principles, we move from reactive technology to the intentional creation that builds a fair and peaceful world. One fascinating study I listened to, I was listening to a debate a while back ago. It was really funny. They're arguing about how AI is going to kill all these jobs, and Jack Ma was one of the speakers in the debate. And Jack Ma goes, I don't think people are going to complain about a 3-day work week. I mean, maybe they complain, you know, when it was a 7-day work week, it was pretty bad. A 6-day work week was better. 5-day work week, what we have now. But maybe AI is going to be a 4-day week work or a 3-day work week. And people will have time to do other things in their lives. You know, that's one of the things that people look at. One fascinating thing I just heard, I thought was really interesting. They're talking about how much people feared AI, and a guy was there from China, and he looked at it and goes, AI is great, because I'm a communist. This is the great equaler. There'll be no more uppers and lowers. We all are going to be together now. That was his theory. It was very interesting. All right, let's go to the next slide.
Before I do, is that picture on the right generated by AI?
So this presentation, I used to do these presentations all the time for the DoD. I couldn't find my presentation. So I went to Google Sheets and I said, create me a presentation on AI for people in Unitarian Church. And that's it. So that's it. It's completely genuine. I did none of it. Yeah, there's our teenager, the supervising teenager. We're going to have, what we're doing now in the world of AI is trying to figure out how we could get the guardrails, how we could teach this hipster teenager that he's not the cockiest and coolest guy in the world, that he is really somebody who has to think of other people. And that's what our job right now in AI is, and we have to get through that. Let's go to the next slide. And there he is. Now he's a family man. He's a leader of a country. He's somebody we can trust. And that's where we are with it. We're not there. We're not here yet. We're still in the teenager phase, but our goal, what's happening is we're getting there. So it's something very positive to look for. Let's move to the next slide. So we're the parents. It's a really tough decision about how we want to do AI. I always think this was funny. Do we want AI to do what's good for us, to tell us what's right to do, and even enforce what's right to do? Some people say, yeah, that makes sense. So what if AI says you can't smoke? Or says, we don't want you drinking. You can't have a beer. You know, and it starts stopping the car engine when you try to go out to buy a beer. I mean, or you're doing something and you get a shock when you say a swear word. I mean, you want AI to be that loving parent. You want it to take care of us, but not too much. Just like we don't want an overprotective parent. So we need to find that role where we're allowed to go our own direction, allowed to have it lie, but maybe not too far. You saw I tried to get it to swear, it won't swear. All right, so that, I had actually cut a couple slides out because of the size. But anyway, that was it. I think there's one more slide, and that's basically it. But let's go with Q&A for now, and what do you guys have? Great evening.
I'm going to take this to run around, and you might want to answer with that one.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Hold many questions, I'm sure. All right, Harry.
I just wonder, what's the ballpark figure for the number of people that are actually working in this? And how many different AI engines are there? Do they all work together? I assume they don't.
They don't. Well, so, you know, AI's been around since the 60s, you know, the long 1960s, right? So it's been around a long time. But in 2012, actually, it's kind of fascinating. In about 2012, a guy named Geoffrey Hinton from the University of Toronto started developing this concept called deep learning. And what it was there was a principle in the 80s, 1980s, called a neural net, which was kind of a failure. People tried to use these neural nets to simulate what neurons did, and it didn't work very well. And then the way the AI community worked is fascinating. They basically had competitions. And they said, we're going to give you, like, okay, we have 3 million rows of data that predicts if someone has diabetes. We're going to take 1 million rows and hide them in a safe. And then we're going to take the remaining 4 million rows, we're going to give them to all these universities. And we're going to say, use those 4 million rows to write a program that will determine if someone has diabetes. And then they all use these AI routines to do this, and then they send their programs in. And then we take the programs and we look at the million records that the system never saw before. And we said, let's see how good the programs work. And that's, they were competition, you get $1 million if you win, or 25,000 or whatever the number is. So these competitions were taking place at all the universities all over. Toronto started saying, you know, these neural nets are pretty cool, but they don't work very well, so we're going to start adding layers inside of them, more and more layers. And we're going to say it's getting deeper and deeper as we add more and more layers into this neural net complex. And they discovered that they started getting really good answers, and they started winning the competitions. And they said, this is actually traditional before large language models, so that became a movement called deep learning. It's deep neural nets. So that became the deep learning movement in 2012. 2018, Google discovered this thing called the transformer. They were trying to figure out how to translate Russian to English. So they said, well, we're going to look at the sentence, and this is what the next English word is, and we're going to try to figure it out by looking at the legs of the sentence. We're going to try to guess what the next word is. And we're just doing translation, voice translation. And they realized when it guessed what the next word is, it did a pretty good job. And that became the foundation of all the large language models. And that was basically the deep learning came from the University of Toronto and Geoffrey Hinton, who won the Nobel Peace Prize. And then the transformer came from Google and Elliot Stavetsky, who worked for Google for a while and then got hired into OpenAI and then quit OpenAI and started his own company. So those were the two major technologies. Now, people took those technologies. China has created about 10, 15 major large language models. All of them are pretty bad. America has, I think, 5 big ones. There's going to be Grok, well, it's Grok, which is from XAI. There's OpenAI. There is Anthropic, which is Claude. And then there's Google, which is Gemini. We also have Meta, which is Llama. So those are kind of the big 5. But there's other ones out there. There's open source one. There's free ones. I use, in my day-to-day, probably 4 different ones. They all have different prices. Like Claude is a great one, but it costs $4 per million tokens. The same thing in the Chinese model, so it costs like 10 cents per million tokens. So I'll use different ones depending on.
Which one were you using today in your discussion?
Right now, we are talking to Gemini. This is Google. Here's Google. And this is Claude over here. Claude.
I understand you're concerned about burns on your lips, but I can't provide.
Ah, shut up.
I understand you're concerned about burns on your lips, but I can't provide medical advice or recommend.
It did at the time. Yeah, so this is Claude, which is another one. Claude is very interesting. Claude had a big, Anthropic is very big in the industry right now. So what Anthropic did is very interesting. They all have their own niches. So basically the OpenAI said they wanted to kind of get the biggest. They're owned by Microsoft, okay? And they basically tried to get. They have the guy who runs it. It's called Sam Altman. They've had a lot of problems. They're kind of falling down, but they were the first ones out the door. And some of the people who worked for OpenAI thought they weren't doing guardrails well. So they said, we're going to leave and start our own company, and that became Anthropic. And then Anthropic said, all we're going to do is coding, okay? And then of course, OpenAI, Elon Musk said, I've got some giant data centers that I'm using already for my Tesla cars. I could repurpose those to try to use this knowledge to be able to help me do OpenAI to do AI and with Twitter. So he had the Twitter data set, which is a great data set. So he had his thing, which is Grok. Meta is using it in order to try to do Facebook ads and things like that. And then Google integrates into into all your Word documents, your Google documents, and your Google Mail, and your Google phones, and all your stuff. Now, the thing that Anthropic did, which was smart, is they said, we don't care about all these cool things like Google's doing, like going into your mail and checking all this information. All we're going to do is make sure we know how to write software code really well. And then we're using that code that we write that is now optimized to optimize our own product. So there's a concept called recursive coding where you're basically going to get to the point where the AI is going to be able to code for itself. And we haven't reached that point, but when we reach that point, there's kind of a belief that there's going to be a takeoff, and it's going to be very fast.
I've got here.
So Anthropic is now like the best one, which is kind of funny. Go ahead.
Oh, Doug knows how to work a microphone. Hey, Art. I'm sorry, I'm going to be confrontational here.
Sure.
I work in IT. I started coding on mainframes in 1981.
So did I.
And now I do cloud work. And this is going to be confrontational. You had a picture in there that was created by AI. An artist could have done that picture.
Yep.
And you didn't give that artist a 3-day work week. You gave them a 0-day work week because
That's
you
true.
fired that artist outright. At the same time as I have an IT background,
I know,
and I
yeah.
do know stuff about AI.
Right.
I'm also I'm a musician. I'm a
Right.
poet. AI should not be in that territory. Period. You could have hired an artist for your presentation, and they could have benefited monetarily. But instead, right now, artists are not making money. I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I have a lot of YouTube musician friends who are now getting copyright strikes. And they're like, I wrote this song. Why do I have a copyright strike? And they're going back, they're challenging the copyright strike, and it's an AI music company based out of China that trained on their song and wrote a song. And then they said, no, we own the rights. And these guys are having to hire lawyers and lose money. So what are your thoughts on AI getting the hell out of all creative pursuits, because they do not belong there? They are taking jobs away from artists, as you illustrated in your presentation.
Right.
That's an artist that didn't get a job making the picture for your presentation. And musicians that I know are being hurt and are having to hire lawyers and fight copyright strikes that are pure BS because of these AI companies.
No.
So those are my thoughts.
And I think it's 100% valid concern. I mean, that is like one of the major valid concerns. Especially all of these people are like, I wrote this. Now, AI's taking my job away. AI's, I have this great creativity, but, I mean, I don't want to, the problem is, I wish that, when the water wheel came along, the grinder, the horses and buggies all went away. When the electricity came along, the water wheels went away. I mean, a lot of things, time happens and it screws a lot of people. We got to figure out how to do this fair. I think people have to figure out how to do this fair. I think people are working on it. I don't think they're doing a good job. I think that, but the problem is there's, people are doing it for money, trying to figure out a shortcut, and American way is greed, so we got to figure out some other way around it.
I like to say that an artist puts their heart and soul into their art,
Right.
but AI doesn't have a heart or a soul.
Okay.
So hopefully that, I've got,
Sure.
Okay, Linda.
It's not a great answer, I know, but there isn't a great answer is the problem. We have to figure out how we're going to take the best of both worlds, and it's a hard problem. So there isn't a great answer. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want to ask about how AI can intrude into a conversation. Maybe Amy told you my story. I was actually communicating with Amy, I thought,
Right.
on our little app that we have for our knitting group, and I was wanting some information about what she was bringing to our meeting. And, I was having this long, prolonged conversation, and I was getting kind of weird answers, but I wasn't sure. So about that time, Amy came in,
Right.
and she looked at my phone. She said, "You're talking to AI." And I had no idea. How did it get in?
All I could say about that, I know these are a great set of non-answers, but we're dealing with a teenager. We're dealing with a frickin' teenager. AI is not. I know what happened there. I was talking to Amy. She triggered the Meta AI agent to respond to her call. Right. So. And right now, we need to make it do better. We have to figure out ways that it should detect that. I have gone into, it's funny. The guardrails are like a double-edged sword. I mean, they put these guardrails up. The weirdest thing is a lot of the stuff where it goes wacko is when humans try to get involved in the mix, where humans kind of say, "Oh, I'm going to instrument it to do it a certain way," but humans can't think of all of the exceptions to the rules. There's just too many of them. A human can think of the top 4 or 5 and they code a couple in there and then they're not thinking about everything. And we want this to be like a human. Now, there is a concept which is called AGI. Have you heard of that? Anybody heard that? AGI is artificial general intelligence. Now, what that means is that Right now, when you make a machine, when I created that little program which determined whether or not a person had diabetes or not, that was a supervised learning specific job. It was called narrow AI. It had one function: figure out if the person has diabetes. That was it. It's narrow AI. General AI means a human being kind of knowledge. You could do anything. You could ask it any question, and it'll come up with any answer. And that's what we're seeing going on now, is that these people are getting this general intelligence where we're expecting the AI to have the intelligence of a human being and to react like a human being, not like a computer, not like a program. So we're treating it like a human being, and it's not, and we have not accomplished AGI yet. It has not been there, but people are, again, right now it's a teenager. So we're facing a lot of these challenges that are kind of coming along. So.
I have a question. I have
Sure.
a question here.
Huh?
So I read an article probably a year or so ago about the process of AI being reverse engineered to check on itself, which took its accuracy for coding from 36% to 96%. However, the end of the article says that process can cause the system to collapse, which I didn't understand, and that was the question I have, if you know what that means. So this is AI checking on itself.
Yeah. I do a lot of that, so I actually do a lot of that kind of stuff. And it makes mistakes all the time. I mean, you see, I understand it's a tool, and the reason I know it's a tool is because I've seen the 10,000 mistakes it makes. I know I'm not dealing with a real human because I see all the screw-ups and all the time, so I'll be constantly saying, double-check your work, test your work, verify this, add logics in to be able to verify what you're doing is correct. So I have a lot of that kind of stuff in there. A lot of people don't. There's a new thing called vibe coding, which is really fascinating, which is it's amazing. If you've heard of it, he probably hates it. Vibe coding is, I've used vibe coding, or you could actually go up to a machine and you could say, I'd like a program which will track all the people who show up to UCR sermons, and I want a website that'll do that, and I want to have a login page, and I want to have an audit trail, and it'll create it.
Quick question. This talk will be on YouTube. Does AI look into the YouTube talks?
Well, it's not going to be there yet, but, oh yeah, YouTube is definitely one of the sources, especially for Gemini, which is owned by Google. So yeah, they'll be able to see this course. You know, if you see YouTube transcriptions where you could turn it on, you can see the name. All of those words are being pumped into AI, so it'll actually see this conversation.
She might complain.
And it'll put a summary in. It just says that that might even say I was full of shit about something.
She might complain about you being rather rude to her in your responses.
So well, that's a fascinating point, because notice what I did here. I had AI talking, and it gave information. This is going to go to YouTube, which is going to use that information. So now I've got AI telling it to be authoritative data to AI. So that's a danger, where we don't want AI providing the native information to AI. That's one of the challenges.
And actually, I read something interesting this morning. It was...
Wait.
Hospital transcriptions have been found to contain the phrase, please like and subscribe, because whenever it can't tell what it's hearing, it falls back on its original training, which is YouTube content.
All right.
So that's another pitfall.
Well, there are packages which will do a lot of that stuff. I've actually used some of those packages, and they'll ask what format you want when you generate your video. And one of the format options, which you choose a lot, is YouTube, and then YouTube will automatically throw that at the end, and you have to take it out. So it's more like, that's actually one of the situations where it's a human coding error versus because the human side's, everybody who wants to select YouTube is going to want to like and subscribe on the last thing.
Yeah.
That's not AI. That's human.
Just an article I read this week about Anthropic, that they've recently, just come out with a new model.
Mystic, yeah.
And that the coding in this model is so good
Yep.
that they're now not releasing it
Yep.
to everyone
Yep.
because of concerns about cybersecurity. Can you
Yes.
say something about that?
Yeah, that's really and I applaud Dario Amodi for doing that. That is a great thing. And now, as I mentioned, Anthropic was the one that said we're going to focus on, writing code that writes code. So it's it's going to do recursive engineering, so it'll write code and get better by itself. The first person who accomplishes that is expected to like blow everybody else out of the water. And a lot of people have been doing bells and whistles on other things, but Anthropic focused just on coding. That's where their area is big. So they have exceeded. So now their next release is so good that they're actually finding, they put it out into these systems and say, find vulnerabilities in the code. And it found all of these vulnerabilities. So what they did, which was very noble of him, he's a pretty good guy, he said, we're going to inform all these companies about all these vulnerabilities in their code. We're going to tell Microsoft that it's got a vulnerability in Word, and we're going to tell Oracle it's got a vulnerability here, and we're going to tell this, and we're going to give all these people who have all these vulnerabilities we discovered time to fix their bugs before we release this out to the world to use it. So it's actually what he did was he has a great model. It's blowing everybody away, but he said, I'm not going to release it because, now I don't know if you know what a zero-day vulnerability is. Has anybody heard of that?
Fix it now.
Yeah, well, it's worse than that. Zero-day vulnerabilities are like, they're worth, if you find one, it's worth about $3 or $4 million, okay? And then when the military finds, I used to work in the military. To the military, these are weapons. So if we find something where we could shut down a whole complex of networks, the military will not tell anyone because they know they could use that to shut down the Chinese networks if there's a war, or the Iranian networks. So they are stuck in this strange situation where they're like, we know about the vulnerability. If someone brings that to us, brings it to the DoD, they'll stuff it away, and they're going to say, okay, we've got this weapon now we can use. We're not going to tell anybody. But we're going to like prime that if it does come out and someone discovers it, we're going to tell everybody right away so they can fix their stuff right away because we don't want it to be used on us. So that's zero-day vulnerabilities. That's what this thing has found is a bunch of zero-day vulnerabilities by combining multiple cybersecurity failures, not just one, but chaining them together. So he did a good job. He said, I'm going to hold off, I'm not going to release his models until the companies have, and he's not holding them back. He's saying, I'm telling the world about them. I'm sure the DoD is not happy about this because the DoD probably knows about a lot of these. It's taking weapons away from the DoD.
We're at war right now. We're at war right now, and that brings up my ultimate fear. Will AI have the ability to get through the final layer to govern our nuke weapons and decide how they're used? The reason is so in my head, a recent meme showed that in the October event of '62, one Soviet naval officer said no, he would not turn the key and start World War III. And that's my ultimate fear.
Yeah. So the Russian systems detected
me.
a couple snowbanks on a mountaintop, and they reflected off it. They thought they were incoming missiles, and they reported as incoming missiles. And he said, "I'm not going to retaliate." That was that was a big deal. The DoD, believe it or not, is very fearful of a lot of this type of technology stuff. You know, you see them being very like, they will isolate the networks. They do where you have separate, rooms. There's a thing called the secure network that, it's called CyberNet, that basically they don't use the same wires. There's actually many sets of wires throughout the ground. There's the NIPRNet, which is you probably know of all these, which is the high security, moderate security network for the military. And then there's the CyberNet, which is the high security. In the CyberNet, they have their own dedicated wires. They're not allowed to hire anybody outside of the nation. They have complete air gaps. This is a lot of cloud stuff between facilities. You cannot put two machines in the same box. They have these things called FedRAMP and this advanced CC regulations, which is all about making sure these machines are separate. Now, that stuff is really good, but it's very expensive, and it's causing the DoD to go like 10 times slower into technology. So they can't go a lot of things. Google's changing a little bit of that because they're beginning to believe that they can do it other ways, but they don't use the same machines we use, the DoD. They segregate all of that stuff, and they're very serious about it. Does that mean they can't get through? No. Does that mean that a madman can't push a button? You know, a lot of things can go wrong in this world. I would, you know, it could be a human error. It doesn't have to be a cyber error. Things could go wrong. But they are looking at that. That's not an accident. That's a very serious thing. As a matter of fact, when Biden met Xi, that was one of the conditions that they were set, is that they will make sure that there's no computer or automated generation of any kind of nuclear attacks. That was the one in San
Just
Francisco.
two more questions. One, Dick.
When do you expect AI to achieve adulthood, or will it ever?
Well, I thought I reached adulthood. But my wife would tell you I never did. So it's going to be a matter of opinion. But I do think that the stuff that's going to go on, it's going to get better and better. I mean, we're going to have to figure out ways that there's a fake videos. There's legislation right now that says you got to put the words AI generated on a video if it's a fake video. You know, there's legislation going on right now which is going to fix a lot of these issues, I think. Fix some. It's growing older.
Okay, quickly.
The one thing for the artist over there, I would say to protect your work, copyright your work, and if necessary, class action lawyers. But my question to you is, do we have privacy issues? Is there more, should we be more concerned about AI with privacy than any other internet thing?
That's a really important question. And there are definitely some concerns that are unique to AI. Things like how our data is used to train the models, whether personal info could accidentally come out in responses, and the potential for creating detailed profiles about us from a lot of different sources. So, yeah, the scale and potential of AI to connect information presents some different privacy challenges than traditional websites or services. Is there a specific aspect you're most worried about?
I'm not going to put you on the spot there. You know, of course, the answer is yes, but, you know, hopefully this is going to be, they've been doing that kind of stuff. They've been using our data in artificial intelligence for years. It's been for advertising. They've been doing it like crazy for a long time. But yeah, I do think you're going to have more issues. I do think, I always ask, double check. If you, like, let's say you ask for an opinion on something, try to say, give me a full opinion. You know, don't just give me, you know, like, if you want, like, to get more of a, kind of out of your bubble, tell it, I want to hear all sides of the story and I want to understand the whole thing. There's a lot of things you could kind of do to try to get it out of a bubble, and try to get it, because if it starts collecting data and it knows what you want to hear, it's just going to tell you what you want to hear. It's not going to tell you necessarily what the truth is.
Very last question from Bob.
This will be a quick question of you. Okay. I always get it the wrong way. I'm wondering about you and AI. You've been working with AI for a while, and I'm wondering, not using AI, but methods for measuring what's going on in your brain. Has AI had an impact on your brain? Are you thinking better, I guess is the way of putting it,
you know,
now than you were before AI?
Actually, you know, that's kind of a controversy. A lot of people are saying it's causing people to think less.
It is.
Because you don't have to think through the answers yourself. You just ask AI, and it gives you the answer. When I write a letter, you know, I wrote a little response. Michael said, "Oh, I got in last night," and I tried to write my response to him in like, "Jolly good show, old boy," you know, trying to do my best version of English. And then I said, "Boy, that sucks." And then I went over and I went to AI, and I said, "Give me a good one," and it came up with a fantastic one with all of these like. All these Cockney expressions, you know, of head of meat means a brain, and all these weird terms that I never knew. And I thought, wow, it was way better. If I could have just gone there, it would have done a much better job than me, but I had to think about it.
It did a worse job. I could tell it was AI. Okay,
I didn't give you that wasn't AI. I did a really bad job myself. AI would have been much better.
So that was amazing. Thanks so much. Let's thank Arthur. And it will be on YouTube if you want to see it later.
Tell everybody goodbye and thanks for listening.